Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. Student loan debt is a major burden that many young adults have to deal with. In fact, 68% of freshly minted undergraduates have student loan debt, and almost 61% of freshly minted graduate students have student loan debt. And according to Forbes, as of 2023, the typical student with debt is on the hook for roughly $29,000. And starting out your life in debt isn't really the fresh start that most people are hoping for. Rather, it can feel like you're starting with shackles on. But study after study say the same thing. Having a degree makes a difference in your annual income and your lifetime earnings. My dad always had the saying that education doesn't cost, it pays. Simply getting a degree for the sake of getting a degree doesn't guarantee you any sort of paycheck. You should weigh heavily the available careers that a degree can provide. But when it comes to student loan debt, there is a general rule of thumb. It's that your total debt should be no more than your anticipated first year's income when you graduate. So that means if you expect to land a job that pays $50,000 a year when you graduate, you shouldn't borrow more than $50,000 to get that degree. Of course, if you can get by with borrowing less, that's always a great plan because why take the max debt possible? If you followed this channel for any length of time, you probably know that one of my basic tenets of building wealth is that you should get invested as early as possible, giving yourself the longest runway possible when it comes to compound interest. Because the earlier you get started, the easier it is to build wealth. But when you start out with student loan debt, it can feel like you're starting out behind the eight ball, that you're behind everyone else. And you might wonder, should I pay off all my debt first and then start investing? Or should I split the difference? Should I pay off the debt and invest all at the same time? Well, let's look at the typical student. Let's say we have someone who's 22 years old. Median starting income for a college graduate is $47,000. Median student loan balance at $29,000. Good news is that loan amount is within the guidelines recommended based on income. The standard time frame to pay off your student loans is 10 years. And if this person follows that schedule, payments would be about $300 a month. And let's say our individual wants to follow the 50-30-20 budget, where 50% goes towards needs, think housing, groceries, life's necessities, 30% goes towards wants, and 20% goes towards savings or debt repayment. This individual would, after taxes, have an income of about $3,300 a month. So that would leave $1,650 towards their needs, $990 towards their wants, and $660 towards their debt repayment or savings. If they take the full 10 years to pay off those student loans, assuming no income increases throughout that entire time, that would leave them with $357 every single month to invest. And if they did that for 10 years straight, they would have a nest egg of about $65,000 by the time they were done paying off their student loans. At which point they could invest the full $660 a month, and if they did that, by the time they reach the age of 62, they would have a nest egg of nearly $1.6 million. But what if they were to ditch the debt early? What if they took that full 20% that was allotted for savings and investments and put it all towards paying off that student loan debt and ditching that debt in just 5 years' time? Well, if they did that, then after those 5 years took that full $660 and put it towards investments, at the age of 62, they would have a nest egg of around $1.4 million. These ending portfolios aren't all that different. It really depends. Do you want the debt hanging around for an additional 5 years, or do you want that debt paid off? One more example. What if somebody wanted to go above and beyond and pay off this debt as quickly as possible? They took a little bit from their wants category, say $300, and now are paying $960 towards paying off this debt. With that kind of repayment, they could get the debt paid off in 2.5 years. Then, at that point, they go back to investing 20%. That's $660. Well, if they did that, by the time they hit the age of 62, they would have $1.8 million. And in all of these examples, we assume there were never any pay raises, and that's probably highly unlikely. With pay raises over the years, you'd be able to increase the amount you put towards savings, you'd be able to elevate your lifestyle a little bit, so you'd actually end up with higher balances. But what do you do if you're one of those young professionals with a lot of student loan debt? Think a doctor or a lawyer, and you have student loan debt that's 6 figures. Doctors, for example, have a very unique career trajectory when it comes to getting their first paycheck. That tends to come during their residency, and it tends to be around $60,000 a year, depending on the location. However, once they finish their residency, then they get their real medical doctor paycheck. Then their income goes from $60,000 a year to $200,000, $300,000, or $400,000 a year or more. Well, let's consider that the average medical student graduates with about $200,000 in student loan debt. But when you start earning that first paycheck of $60,000 a year or $4,100 a month after taxes, it's not likely that you're going to be making headway on these student loan payments. They would probably have to be adjusted to more of an income-based repayment or even deferred until the residency years were done, and at this time, interest would likely accrue. For our example, let's assume we have a traditional student who's 28 years old by the time they complete undergrad, med school, and a 2-year primary care residency. At this time, it would be reasonable to assume that their student loans grew to about $220,000. They then get hired as a fully credentialed doctor, making the median income of about $213,000 a year. The monthly income would be about $13,000 a month. The student loan bill would be about $2,500 a month. And again, we're going to assume that this person is following the 50-30-20 budget. So that would leave about $6,400 towards their wants, $3,800 towards their needs, and $2,500 towards debt repayment and savings. If our student decides to take 10 years to pay off these student loans and they follow the 50-30-20 budget style, there wouldn't be any extra money to invest during those years. So for the first 10 years, they're just paying off that student loan balance. Then once that's all paid off, after 10 years, they start investing that full 20% at the age of 38. By the age of 62, they would have over $2 million. Let's be honest, you could likely pay these off sooner if you wanted to. You could steal a little bit from the wants category and a little bit from the needs category and double down on that payment and get them paid off in 5 years. Ditch the student loan debt by the age of 33. Then if you went back to that 50-30-20 budget after those 5 years and began investing that $2,500 a month, your investments could grow to $3.6 million by the time you turn 62 years old. You could still live better than you did as a resident, but just live modestly and pay off that debt aggressively. It's no doubt that the loan amounts for many of these specialties is a lot, but often the career pay is still in line with the loan amounts. And this is the philosophy most of my family members have used because most of them are doctors and have paid off hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt in just a few years' time, because why carry that debt longer than you have to? It can feel like a huge burden when your student loan balances are so high and your starting pay is so low. But when you're in a position or a career that you know you're gonna get a big upswing in pay in just a few years' time, you might just have to say, well, this kind of comes with the territory. Make the minimum payments necessary to get you through those years when your income is lower. And then once you get your real professional salary, then you aggressively pay off the debt. Because there's not really much you can do with that level of student loan debt until you get that true professional salary anyhow. Because payments on, say, $200,000 of student loan debt are actually quite manageable when your income is $300,000 or $400,000 a year, as it is for many of these specialties. But it still kind of feels like having debt like this holds you back a little bit. And I think I'll always have a touch of Dave Ramsey. I think I'm 35% in the beliefs of Dave Ramsey's system. So let's get rid of these bad debt types as quickly as possible so you can get on to enjoying your paycheck and all the possibilities that come with it. So it's my personal opinion that 1, get an emergency fund. And once you have a fully funded emergency fund, then you go ahead and you aggressively pay down this student loan debt. Then once that student loan debt is paid off, you go full steam ahead on investments. Paying off this type of debt quickly allows you to free up more of your income so you can put more towards investments and more towards simply living the life you want to live. And when you know your salary is going to turn into a great income in just a couple years, I think it's just fine to delay your start to investing. Sure, invest when you can, but your life trajectory is going to look different than someone who starts their career at, say, 22. Yes, you're starting later, but you're coming at it with a much bigger shovel. And I have to say, regardless of your career, as your income goes up, I don't think there's anything wrong with a little bit of lifestyle creep. It's natural to want some nicer things. In fact, that's probably a big reason why you are going for higher pay, whether that's a career that offers higher pay or going after promotions. But I do think there's a right and wrong way to go about embracing lifestyle creep. Because if you see a bigger paycheck and your first and immediate thought is, yay, I get to spend more, that's where you can get yourself into trouble. But rather, if you put some intentionality behind it, that's where you stay on track. You see a bigger paycheck and you think, okay, I have to up my savings and my investments a bit, and then I can also up how much I'm spending on the things I want in life. Well, I think that works out just fine, because you certainly don't want to be saving the same amount when you're earning $150,000 as when you were originally earning, say, $50,000. So you just want to make sure that your savings and investments are increasing as your income increases. By all means, enjoy your larger paycheck and all the things that it allows you to do in life. And make sure you ditch that student loan debt as quickly as possible, because then you can work on building your net worth. What do you guys think about student loans? Do you like the idea of paying them off quickly, or do you take the full 10 years or however many years it may be to pay them off? Let me know your thoughts in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye.